Hey guys, welcome back. In last lecture I gave you a short introduction into our Vue application. In this lecture we'll continue and we'll talk more about Vue components, and I will show you how you can create the data in your Vue component. Alright, so let's start. Open your coding editors and let's see our app.vue file. Every file with the extension of Vue is a Vue component, and you can define in a Vue component template, script, and a style. Template is for HTML code, alright? So everything inside of a template is HTML, so for or HTML part, so HTML part, okay? Script tags wrapping JavaScript code, so whatever you will put inside of a script is a JavaScript, so JavaScript or JS part, alright? And style tags wrapping our stylings for our application, so stylings can be CSS can be SCSS. Perfect. Alright, let's start our JavaScript part. As you can see here, we are exporting default empty object, and this is how you define Vue component JavaScript part. You need to export default empty object here, and then you can define some properties for your component. Here we are defining the name of our component, but this is not required. You don't need to write it, alright? So when I will remove this part, it should work as before. Let's save this. Let's go back to our browsers. Let's refresh and you can see it will be working as before. Alright, let's go back to our coding editors. I will revert this change, and now I will show you how you can specify data on your component. Okay, so data you can use also inside of your template and inside of your JavaScript code. So under name, I will specify data, and the data is a function, so data function like this, and it should return object. So return here object, and you can specify here all of the data. Alright, so let's say I want to specify here some text, so it will be for a string. So let's say some string value, then I can specify here, let's say some number, this will be just number, let's say 16. Alright, now maybe some boolean values, so can this side, this will be initially, let's say true. Alright, let's say we can also create a list, so list of the data, so let's say 1, 2, 3. Alright, I can specify here also object, so some object, this can be object with properties, let's say A will be 1, B will be 2. Alright, I can have here C with the list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So I can specify here any data as I want. I can specify here also functions, so let's say I would like to create here our data function like this, and I can, let's say, console log out here data function, and I can return from here, let's say, value I am data function. Okay, so this is for a data of your component. You can use this data inside of your template with interpolation. Okay, so how can we interpolate these variables into actual values in our template? It's actually very simple. Let's scroll down under H1 and let's write here under a div, and every div will contain all of this data, not all of this data, but one part of this data. Okay, so first div, let's display here text. You can do it as this. When you want to reference your variable inside of your template, you need to write double curly brackets and then name of your variable. Okay, so we can paste it and copy and paste it multiple times, so we can display more of our data. So for example, this will be text, some number. Here we can display can decide. Here we can display our some object. Here we can display, let's say, some object and only A property of some object. Here maybe some object and it's only C property, and here we can call our data function. So I will just display here data function. And of course, as I told you in last lectures, you need to call it when you want to execute your function, all right? Because then you will get only your function declaration displayed. Let's save it like this and let's see these results. Let's go back to our browsers. All right, and actually we are missing comma, so let's go back to our coding editors. And after created, you need to write comma because this is an object, and you need to write a comma sign after each property. Alright, so let's save this, let's go back to our browsers. Now it should work, and you can see some string value. This is a 16, this is a true. Here we have our some object with all the values. Here is just a first part of a some object. Here is a C part of a some object, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here is our function, so our function declaration. This is not execution. So we are just displaying how our function looks like. And here is IamData function, because we executed our data function, and our data function is returning string, and this string is what we are displaying here. Okay, so you can inspect this data, you can play with this, you can try to debug this code. Actually, there is nothing to debug yet, but yeah, if you have any doubts here, just write me. Alright, so we have our data we can use in our template, but this data you can use also in other parts of your JavaScript code. So when you want to create some functions here in your component, you need to declare here property called methods. Let's do it after created lifecycle function. I'll write here comma, and I will declare here property called methods. And in methods, we will create some functions, or you can reference them as a methods or functions. Actually, I'll be talking functions, I mean methods, and when I will talking methods, I mean functions. I mean the same thing, simply just a reusable code. All right. So let's create here some functions. So let's say test function A. As I told you, when you want to access your variables, your data on an object, you need to use this context. So you have here available this context, and you can access all of your functions and the data with a this. All right, so I can write here console log. I can access here my, let's say, this text. All right, I can access here this some number. I can access here, let's say, some object, some object and property A on an object. So some object property A, like this, and I can access here my data functions. For example, I can call here this data function. So this data function, I can call this, and let's say I want to return from here IamTest function A. Let's write here debugger. All right, and let's use this function in a template. So I will copy this test function A, and let's write here div curly brackets, and let's execute here function test function A. As soon as I'm executing this function in my template, this will be called. So I can write here, actually I have the debugger. So let's go back to our browsers, and you will see when I will inspect this page and I will refresh, I will get into my code, and this is how you can debug your Vue components. Alright, so you can put the freely debuggers into your code. You can see I called test function A. I can reference here my test, which is some string, some number, some object, and a key of A. Right, let's hover over. Actually, yeah, I can see it. It's 1. Alright, and here I'm calling data function. So let's see. I will execute this. I will console log out all of this. You can see the console log. Alright, I can jump into the data function. So you will see when I will jump out inside. First, I will get into the Vue wrapper. So this is just some Vue code. It's executing our function. So let's click here outside on this step out. And let's click again to step inside. And we should jump into the data function. You can see now I'm executing my data function. All right, and now I'm returning here I test function A. All right, small typo there, but I will display this in my template. You can see I test function A. Alright guys, so I think that should be it for this lecture. Now you know how you can create a data on your component, and how you can create a methods, and how you can access your variables in your template and also inside of your JavaScript code. I will remove this debugger from here. In the next lecture we'll continue. We will remove all of this here, and we will start actual component for our Vue to-do application. So guys, that's it for this lecture, and I hope to see you in the next one. Cheers guys!